shareholders' right and zero-sum CSR.
Hi, this is Lieze Mae Jabalde and welcome to BA300 Corporate Social Responsibility and Good Governance Chapter.
This is Morksan Vergara, one of your hosts in BA300 Corporate Social Responsibility Chapter 13.
Shareholders' right and zero-sum CSR.
So, what comes in your mind when you hear about shareholder rights and zero-sum CSR? But first, who is Ned Gabas? Actually, he is a senior lecturer in international and political studies at the University of New South Wales and the Australian Defence Force Academy. According to him, abstract CSR involves the management of the corporation using the resources of that corporation to promote the welfare of non-shareholders. Just like for an example, the disadvantaged members of the community, also the global poor, the animals, and also for the future generations. So in some cases, CSR is used also as a tactic to augment of the competitive strength of a firm. So what do you mean by instrumental CSR or shared value CSR? So the term used when CSR is used as a tactic to augment the competitive strength of a firm. And what do you mean by zero-sum CSR? So it is when one group benefits at the expense of the other. And also it happens in some cases when promoting the welfare of non-shareholders and also may expected to compromise the economic interest of shareholders to some extent. And there are actually two simple distinctions. First is a positive and negative right. So for the negative right, it is actually they demand, and for the positive right, the duty bearer must do something. And for the natural and derived rights, so for the natural rights, so right that one has independently of special relationships and so on. So the right that we enjoy simply the virtue in our humanity. And for the derived rights, it's grounded in our own voluntary undertakings and in our spatial relationships, just like for an example with spatial relationships with our family members and also for our colleagues and co-employees. So now let's go to the principles of shareholders' primacy. So according to the primacy principle, shareholders can rightfully demand that management strive to promote their interests. So what is the nature of this relationship? Okay, shareholders are the owners of the corporation and the management is merely an agent appointed to serve the interest. So alternative characterization of the relationship. So what does it mean? Alternative characterization of the relationship. So it says that the shareholders are uniquely vulnerable to the decision and actions of managers and are for this reason they are entitled to their exclusive fiduciary concern. And according to Alexei Markets, so urges that the shareholder or manager relationship is morally analogous to the doctor-patient relationship.
So now let's go to the denying derived positive rights of shareholders. The first way to reconcile zero-sum CSR with the rights of shareholders is to dispute these characterizations of the shareholder-manager relationship, and thus to mount pressure on the notion that shareholders have a derived positive right against corporate executive. Bruce Landry. He was a student at the University of Sydney, where he obtained his BA and PhD and was appointed to a teaching fellowship. He described shareholders as residual risk bearers. It is because they guarantee the performance of contracts accepting the risk of the net loss in return for entitlement to any net profit. Parents and Wicks. They deny that shareholders own corporations. Properly speaking, they also dismiss the related notion that the manager is the agent of the shareholder. Boatright. According to him, there is a logical gap between the property rights of shareholders and the fiduciary duties of management. Good pastor. He is the one who tries to bridge the gap by appealing to a profit-maximizing promise. If we take the promisee principle as given, the shareholder-manager relationship generates a fiduciary duty for management and gives shareholders a derived positive right to have their interests maximized. What is the purpose of this argument? It is to defend zero-sum CSR for their claims that the promisee principle misrepresents the shareholder-manager relationship or exaggerates its normative significance. It also claims that the promisee principle mischaracterizes the relationship between managers and non-shareholders or understates its normative significance.
Let's discuss about affirming the derived positive rights of non-shareholders. The primacy principle states that, first, shareholders have a derived positive right against the management to their corporation, and second, that non-shareholders have no such derived positive rights against the management of any corporation. This principle simply means that the common shareholder as such only has a right to claim in dividends for his investment unless otherwise special holding be undertaken during the normal course of business. Even though the money invested by the shareholder is used to purchase assets which generate profits, the shareholders' interests are being restricted to claim in dividends and increase the value of stock held. Now, at the time of liquidation of the company, arises the question of rights on the assets. Well, a common shareholder is the last one to be paid off on the sale, but is the preferential holder paying the second last. This is not applicable to the non-shareholders. Traditional shareholders contribute the specific capital that a company needs to pay for its machinery, labors, buildings, and so on. This is called opportunity capital. Traditional shareholders are people who have invested in and on the stock of the company, including customers and anyone having a common interest in a company's performance. That would be included company's employees, stockholders, debtors, and customers, and anyone else with some type of vested interest in a company's activities. And now let's discuss about commercial enterprises. A commercial enterprises is a cooperative scheme that is geared towards reducing benefits. The stakeholders of a company are participants in this cooperative scheme. They are among the parties to whom the benefits of the cooperative schemes are distributed. Now let's talk about the corporation becoming quasi-governmental institution. This means that corporations are now performing functions and wielding powers that were once the reserve of the state. The quasi-governmental status of corporation obliges them to contribute to the promotion of social ideas and mitigation of social ills. This is no longer a task for the state and the state alone. In this view, the shareholders with their quasi-political relationship with the corporation and their mid give them the right positive rights against the managers. They negotiate principles of corporate governance under a veil of ignorance. And now let's talk about CSR and natural positive duties. Corporate executives are obliged to honor the natural negative rights of non-shareholders because these are rights that we all have simply in virtue of humanity. The absence of a special relationship between non-shareholders and manager has no bearing in their moral force. Companies duty to specific non-shareholder group. Now, the question we need to ask is, are there any circumstances where the shareholders of a company
strategies for reconciliation.
Where management can refrain from initiating any such CSR campaign with the company's resources.